Hey everybody, my name is Steve. I am the VP People at Kerkhoff Technologies, which also includes Crafty Penguins and Top Left. And joining me is the CEO of those three companies, Wim Kerkhoff. Wim, good to see you again. It feels like even though our listeners and viewers might not notice any kind of a break, it feels like it's been a while since we've had a conversation in this podcast. So great to see you here again. Thought today that we take a little bit of a different turn and talk about something that you just went through this past weekend, which was a 10K race that you entered and ran and spent months training. And so I think it's a great topic, mainly because I'm into health and fitness and training as well. But I think it could be useful for our listeners who might be wondering, if they're here wondering about listening to like a tech topic or something about business, how that relates, how running relates. And I think it does because of the importance. We're so busy as leaders and business leaders that it's important to have attention paid to health and fitness and activities outside the office to be able to have that well-rounded lifestyle. And so I'm curious, Wim, is this the first race that you've run? Talk a little bit about your training leading up to the race. Share a little bit of that story.
Well, it's a long story, which starts over 10 years ago when I was running then. And 10, 12 years ago, when I just hit a point of out of shape, couldn't run, overweight, towards obese, not in a good spot. And I was getting to personal development, I realized, and just got to a point, I'm like, enough's enough. I got to do something. So, and I didn't know much then. So start running, start walking, start running. I'm like, eat less, eat more healthy stuff. So I ate more of what I thought was healthy and less of what I thought was not healthy. And it was just really simple then. And I did lose like 20, 30 pounds. I started going to a gym, lost more weight, learned more and more about nutrition, about, protein is a thing. What is that? What has protein? All the basics. What's healthy fat? Eggs are okay. There's a whole learning journey on that. Got into running. So about 10 years ago, I was doing 10K races. I did one around Stanley Park in Vancouver. I did one in Harrison. I did Tough Mudder in Whistler, which was a lot of fun. But I actually ended up with an injury, Achilles tendon injury. And I couldn't run anymore. It was just too painful. I could barely walk, barely get upstairs, couldn't run after my kids, nothing. And haven't been able to kick that since then. So I kind of gave up on a lot of those things. I wasn't moving, wasn't active, gained the weight back. And then like a year and a half, 2 years ago, kind of like burned out, like couldn't deal with stress, couldn't sit through meetings. And there's no way I could have a conversation with you like this. So yeah, made big changes on nutrition and sleep, getting good help, emotional help, supplements, all sorts of things. And then I also found a good RMT, chiro, treated me that way, and then got a good running coach and proper training plan. And now I ran a 10K with like 400 meters elevation and a great time and no injuries, no pain. So it's a big difference. So I'm actually in better shape now and less fear and pain about the running than 10 years ago when I was doing it. So I'm pretty excited about that. And so I think just a lot of those lessons along the way applied to business. So even if you don't have a goal of getting into business, there's lessons from it, whatever your experiences. And these things, whether it's learning a new instrument or a new sport or something else, like we are emotional beings, there's fears, all of that. So that all applies in other areas. If we can build confidence and skill and technique in one area and teach others, that's going to apply in business, in life, everywhere. So
yeah, that's amazing.
That's a bit of the story and what I've been going through.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you in a minute about what you just mentioned, the application of the fitness and the running and the training to business. I'm going to ask you specifics about that in a minute. But for those that are listening that they've never done any running, they've never taken on any kind of a fitness program or even like a nutrition program. And so maybe there are some that are listening that are like, one, I've never done it, so I don't even know how to begin. And I've never done it, and I have no interest in it at all. What would you say to people who fit in one of those two categories or both?
If they've never done it and have the feeling they don't want to, then I think it's got to look at why nothing. Like if you're in that couch potato position, you're just happy being there. It might not be, for me, it was like an overweight thing, always struggled with that. So that's there, and you might not be in that position. But some people are like skinny or target weight, their BMI is good, but they're not healthy. They're not active. And it's the stronger we are physically and moving our body and healthy metabolism and good energy production, that helps us everywhere with our mindset. It's just obviously reduces anxiety and depression is having those outlets and moving your body. Fresh air does wonders. An hour outside fixes so many issues in life. Relational, diabetes, the list goes on and on. If we're outside, fresh air, moving our bodies for an hour a day, which is the 10,000 steps, solves a lot of things. So just think about, we have to be strong and healthy in all areas, and we don't have to sacrifice money. We don't have to sacrifice relationship with parents or spouse or business to achieve these things. And in fact, everything has to be dialed in. And if we're running maximum anywhere, that's not optimal. Like your car running at maximum RPMs is not optimal. And that's everywhere. So what is the optimal? Minimal is not optimal. You don't want your bank account balance to be minimal. So what's optimal? Well, the no interest, it's like, find something. It doesn't have to be racing or running. I think everybody's built to run. We've been created that way. But hey, there's other things too, whether it's biking or I got a friend who does squash, loves squash. It could be archery. There's all sorts of things that get our heart rate up. And if you're just no interest in getting your heart rate up, that's your choice on your health, right? Like, yeah, you're holding on to something there, right? I can't solve that for you. That's for you to process. And if you don't know where to start, it's like get out there and walk. Like cut out the sugar. Start with the basics. Don't overcomplicate it. You don't need to read the encyclopedia. You don't need a degree. You don't need to take a course. Cut out sugar. Cut out processed foods, and getting the equivalent of that 1 hour of walking every day. And you can shorten it up and do a half-hour bike or something a bit higher intensity by doing something. That's where you start, and just learning the basics of what does our body need: the carbohydrates, the proteins, the fats, the healthy fats. And explore like what are good choices to make every day with that. Yeah, obviously it's been a journey for me, is getting in contact with the right people, being more aware of how the body works. So it's been a journey. It's not overnight. And I see a lot of people that are smart people. They got degrees, even doctors, but they don't really know what should be going in their mouth. They really don't know. They can't give good advice. So no wonder like everyone's overwhelmed and they're like, it's too hard. I give up. I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to go eat the burger with the fries and the pop. And it's cheap, but it costs money and time to figure those things out. Start with the basics. But obviously there are a lot of books and YouTube videos and everything, but it's conflicting advice. So filtering through that is hard. So I found getting in contact with a local, like I went to a local kind of a boot camp personal training place. And a lot of those places, the gyms, they've got good groups and good advice. And that would be more trustworthy than a magazine off the rack at the checkout at your local grocery, right? Where there's the new bad diet of so-and-so celebrity lost 40 pounds and with the watermelon diet or whatever it might be. So I think there are great people that can provide good advice and input, inspiration with that. Take advantage of it. I did that in the beginning. I wouldn't do that again, but they have challenges, 21-day programs, different things. Some of them are not good, like a Biggest Loser competition. Don't like it. Short-term things. It's got to be long-term education. Just getting meal plans, like, hey, that's great, but it's not sustainable. Like when that's done, you're going to get bored of it. And when that program is done, then you're on your own. So
yeah. Amazing. So I'm happy to report, and you know this, Wim, because we had lunch together. I did have a salad for lunch, taking in some good things. So let's talk now about, like, for those of us who are into business and we're either entrepreneurs or we work in a business. You mentioned earlier that the stuff that you've been doing fitness-wise and health-wise does relate to business. So maybe talk for a little bit about what that looks like. How does that relate to business, and what can we learn from that?
So it's interesting. So I quit going to the gym, and then I lost like my weight again and got in shape. But now I am seeing a trainer again, and by doing my own workouts at home, it was good. But then I'm getting into triathlon training, and I wanted to figure out the running. So I'm like, I got to work with a pro on that. I cannot. After 10 years, I haven't figured it out. So I am seeing local guy, name is Anthony. So I go, he's a studio in his basement. So I go there, and that guy is not a business owner at all. Like he's got no tech. The way he schedules things, it's like text message. Does this time work for you? There's no calendar. You can't book nothing. It's just like email and text. But he runs a nice little business that's a great rate. He's not entrepreneurial at all. Like he keeps on top of his bookkeeping, but it's really basic. It's like, oh yeah, you owe me some more money. There's no invoice. He's like, Can you send me another 500? All right. It's been a couple months. All right. But when I'm there and I'm sweating away in his little torture chamber, my mind's going off all the time with epiphanies and the crossovers from the training and what he's saying and the coaching, the advice to the business. So the one that actually took me a bit, like I didn't listen right away, but he was trying to tell me and I wasn't listening. That's a thing in itself that can happen in the business too. Is somebody's telling us, it could be our supervisor, a business coach, or somebody in a peer group. You got to do this. You got to do this. This is how it works. And that one was pacing. And when I figured that out, that was really a breakthrough for me on my running. Is I didn't realize I was getting injuries and not progressing because I was running too hard, too fast. So when I actually mix up the cross training, different types of work throughout the week and the month. So I was biking, swimming, running with the strength training and the pacing. So pacing, basically, if I slow it down, I could actually run for like a half an hour without stopping. And previously, I'd never done that. Even 10 years ago, I couldn't run a half hour without stopping. And now I can run an hour without stopping. I can keep going by understanding the pace, what's my max heart rate, and just knowing those zones. So that applies directly to work. Is we cannot be running at 90% of our max heart rate. What's the equivalent? So we need to pace it out. Maximal is not optimal. What's the optimal one for that? We've got something in the tank, we can keep going. And we know, like, hey, could I go a little bit quicker here, or should I slow down a little bit to recover? Keeping a pulse on that. And for many years with my workflow, I had no idea. Always overcommitted, running too hard, doing that for 15, 20, 25 years. So now I've been slowing down the commitments, manage the pacing, chunk it up, break it down a little bit every day. And that applies to the work in our IT companies, MSPs, is what's the pacing? And are we working within that, or are we overworking our people? Are they overwhelmed? Are they burning out? So just pacing alone is key. But then also with the running, it's understanding the pacing, the zones, obviously the metrics with the Garmin's and all the Apple Watch, knowing your heart rate and your pacing. That's awesome. And the cadence is another metric that I'll look at a lot. But then there's the skills. Skill training is the drills that Anthony has, amazing, of firing the right muscles, building those skills. And it's you're running not with your feet, not with your knees, but you're running with your core and your hips are really strengthening that. The drills and knowing the position and the lean of the body, that's key. And strength as well, as the strength in the core, quads, calves as well. But really, actually, it's very rare that he actually gets me doing calf stuff. He's like, your calves are strong. Don't need to focus much on that. Let's get those hips going. And that's been working. So much crossover there. And the other thing is the strategy is if you're running a marathon or whatever distance, adjusting your pace and knowing, okay, if I'm doing a 10K, I've got to start slow to warm up. Let's not push. Don't run a 5K pace in that first kilometer of a 10K. Start slow, build up, see how you're doing. You got your middle to get through that. But then you get into that last 30, 40%, you know, like, hey, there's only like 3 kilometers left. Like, let's push harder now. Just knowing that, make up your time there. And that's obviously if you're doing quarterly planning, yearly planning, all those things can happen too. Pace it out, but have a plan, visualize it.
So, Wim, as we kind of wind down this particular time, maybe I could just recap some of the things that you've said. It's been really powerful. So, for those of us that are listening and maybe we haven't been active or we're wondering how we can start, I think that's the key thing that you mentioned is just start and do something. You don't have to wake up tomorrow morning and run a 10K. You know, go start by walking around the block. You know, just some vigorous exercise, get the heart rate going. Start to cut some things out from your diet, like sugar and those types of things, but start somewhere. And then you said, related to business, I really like what you said about pacing. And so in our work life, you know, it's easy for us to put in like 80 hours a week, but that's not necessarily the right thing. And then skill development. So paying attention to how you're running, but in the business world, paying attention to things like how you're managing and leading, how you're coaching people, your own self-awareness and emotional intelligence, and investing into those things. And then strategically paying attention to the long-term race and just really looking at the different time splits and you want to be at this place in your business by this time, and are you on track, and those types of things. And so, Wim, really, really good stuff. I really do think that there is a lot of crossover between health and fitness and business, and you've articulated that well. So appreciate your insights. And for those that are listening, hope that you've got a lot of value out of this. I think you have, but stay tuned again. We'll have another one of these podcasts in a little bit here, talking about other important topics related to growing your business. So Wim, thank you, and hope to see everyone again soon.
That was good. We can always do another segment if people are interested. So I'll see you next time. Thanks, Steve.
Sounds good. Thank you.